This man has spent 68 years on Carson Long's campus and a total of 30 years of military service. He taught at Carson Long for 25 years and became president when his father, who was also president, retired in 71. Later on, he retired as well in 2007. And he has served the school as a trustee, a member of the board of directors, and tireless advocate and supporter ever since. Generations of Carson Long cadets have benefited firsthand from his leadership and wisdom, and now current students and members of the community can also hear his views. Ladies and gentlemen, Colonel Carson E.R. Holman.
We're doing something a little different today. We're dedicating our leadership series to this man who has given so much to Carson Long. Congratulations.
Members of the Board of Trustees, distinguished alumni, faculty and staff, Corps cadets, it's good to be back. Today I'd like to talk to you about leadership. When I was a brand new second lieutenant in the Army, I was stationed at the Fort Bragg, North Carolina, the 82nd Airborne Division. And our division commander had a policy whereby every morning, every Friday morning, everybody would turn out for reveille at 0600. Now our regimental commander had a policy also, and that was after the reveille formation, all the regimental officers would gather around the bleachers. The regimental commander would stop on top of the bleachers, and he'd talk to us about leadership. Well, one of his favorite stories was about Jake and Becky. Well, Jake and Becky got married one time, and they started off on their honeymoon. But this was the day before the car, so they had to start with a horse and buggy. So they started off down the road, clip-clop, clip-clop, and all of a sudden the horse stopped, kicked up his heels, and nearly knocked over the buggy. And Jake said, "Horse, that's once." On down the road again, clip-clop, clip-clop, clip-clop. Second time the horse stopped, kicked up his heels, nearly knocked over the buggy. And Jake said, "Horse, that's twice." Down the road again, clip-clop, clip-clop. And the third time, the horse stopped, kicked up his heels, nearly kicked over the buggy, and Jake pulled out his gun and shot the horse. Becky looked at Jake and said, "Why, you mean, dirty old man, why did you shoot that nice horse?" And Jake looked at Becky and said, "Woman, that's once." Now, the point of the story is this. If you're a squad leader and somebody makes a mistake in your squad, you don't have to punish him the first time. Sit down with him, tell him what he did wrong, tell him what he has to do the next time to correct his mistake. If he makes the same mistake twice, you still don't have to punish him. Sit down, talk to him, tell him what he did wrong, tell him what he has to do the next time. But if he commits the third time, the third mistake again, that's when you let a ton of bricks fall on top of his head. Now, our regimental commander had another policy, or another talk about leadership, and he called it the 3 M's of leadership. You may have heard this before. My mission, my men, and me. A leader's job is to get the mission done first. Get the job done first. Then after you have the job done, then look out for the welfare of your men. And after the job is completed, the mission is taken care of, your men are taken care of, then and only then you take care of me. At Fort Bragg, my first assignment was a platoon leader. And there were 4 platoon leaders in the same company. And every day we ate the same meal at the company mess hall with the rest of the troops. And one day, one of the platoon leaders said, "Hey, why don't we go over to the officers club? They have better food over there, tablecloths, pretty waitresses, everything can be much better." So we decided to go. But there was a long line. It took a long time to get waited on. And consequently, when we got back to the company area, the troops had already formed up and had left for the training area. We were met by the first sergeant, Bull Miller. And Bull said, "Lieutenants, company commander wants to see you in his office." So we marched into his office. Company commander said, "All right, why were you late?" I said, "Sir, why are you sitting like this? We thought we'd get a good meal over at the officers club, and we went over there, but there was a long line. We had to wait a little bit, and we hardly even had time to eat our dessert." There's a long pause. And he looked straight at me and said, "Lieutenant, you don't get paid to eat. You get paid to take care of your men." It's a lesson I've never forgotten. My mission, my men and me. About 6 years ago, we had a cadet here, cadet platoon leader, lived in Centennial Hall, and it was on a January morning. There was snow all over the ground, and he was outside on the Centennial Hall steps shoveling off the snow along with one of his squad members. And I said, "That's very commendable that you're working shoulder to shoulder with your men, that you're not asking them to do something that you're not willing to do." But I said, "What are your other two squads doing?" "Oh," he said, "the second squad's around the side of Centennial Hall. They're shoveling off the parking lot for the secretaries. And the third squad is up behind Centennial Hall, shoveling off the parking lot for the kitchen staff." I said, "No, your second squad is around the side of the building, leaning on the shovels. And your third squad is up behind the barn, smoking." Well, actually, they weren't smoking, but could have. They were leaning on the shovels too. And I said, "While it's commendable that you're out front with your first squad, helping them to shovel the snow, you don't know what's going on with the rest of your platoon. And as a platoon leader, it's your job to supervise to see that the mission is completed. And you can't do that if you're all 2-3 squads." This young man was a good leader, good kid. He was a junior. When he became a senior, he became the battalion executive officer. He was a drill team commander also at Carson Long. He graduated from Norwich University, and he was drill team commander there. In fact, his drill team won the national championship with other such schools such as West Point and Annapolis. And Mrs. Holman and I had the opportunity to go to his graduation at Norwich and see him have those gold bars pinned on his shoulder. And after the graduation ceremony, I had an opportunity to talk to the college president. And he said to me, "If you have any more fine young men like this at Carson Long, I'll take all of them." Carson Long graduates have a great reputation at Norwich. And we have in our midst today another Norwich graduate at Carson Long in 1978. He was a cadet battalion commander. He went to Norwich. He graduated as DMG, Distinguished Military Graduate, and he's been 30 years in the Army. Today is his day of retirement, 30 years to the day. Congratulations for a job well done. Colonel Carson E.R. He was a good battalion commander too. When I was a senior, I was the president of the Senate. And during the first week of school, I called all the cadets together in the chapel, not this chapel, the old chapel and the old Belfield Hall. And I lined up my senators behind me. And I said, "Okay, this year is going to be different. This year we're going to obey the rules. If I catch any one of you breaking the rules, I'm going to turn you in." And that goes for my senators too. If you see any of my senators breaking the rules, you tell me and I'll turn them in. You know what? They believe me. And yes, they called me an SOB, but it accomplished two things. Number one, hopefully, they didn't break the rules that year, especially when I was around. But secondly, it kept me from the very unpleasant task of having to report my fellow cadets or my classmates. There was the year I was a senior, there was a kid in the 8th grade, little kid, nice kid, good leader. And I said to my father, who had dedicated 63 years of his life to this school, I said to him, see that kid? He's going to be the best battalion commander Carson Long has ever had. And sure enough, when he was a senior, he was appointed battalion commander. He was a good battalion commander, good leader. But his roommate wasn't quite so good. His roommate went up and top of dynamite smoking cigarettes. And the battalion commander said, don't do that, that's wrong. I'm going to have to report you. And his roommate said, you're not going to report me. I'm your roommate. I'm your friend. And then sooner or later, he moved down from dynamite into his room in Centennial Hall, smoking again. And his battalion commander said, don't do that. That's wrong. I'm going to have to report you. You're not going to report me. I'm your roommate. I'm your friend. And so he didn't report him. And the smoking then turned to drinking. And instead of reporting his roommate, the battalion commander joined in with the smoking and the drinking. And guess what? A building officer found him. And that good kid who spent 7 years at Carson Long, he lost his battalion and he graduated a cadet. Now, I saw him about 6 years later. We were both in the Army assigned to Alaska. And he told me that story. And he said, you know, that's the worst thing I ever did. And he cried like a baby. Now, I have another story, a little more pleasant than that. Last October, during the homecoming weekend, the alumni were invited to eat lunch at noontime on Friday, as you recall, in the dining room with you cadets. So I sat down at the table, and I had a bowl of food, and I passed it up to the cadet table head. And I said, help yourself. He said, no, sir. Pass it down to the other end of the table. The new cadets eat first. And then he said, you know, my mission, my men, and me. He just made my day. At Fort Benning, Georgia, my first assignment at the School of the Infantry, at least used to be, it's armored now, School of the Infantry, and they had a little card, about this size, a little card on leadership. And on one side of the card, it listed 14 traits of a leader. Now, all the traits are good, but the one I think that's most important is the one on integrity. Integrity, honesty, honor, truthfulness. And no matter where I've gone, Carson Long, West Point, the Army, graduate school, no matter what I've read about Washington, Lincoln, General Colin Powell, when they talk about leadership, they always mention integrity, honesty, an important trait for any leader. My father used to tell his cadets that you may burn my body to ashes, and you may scatter those ashes to the wild, wild winds, but you will never get me to say anything or do anything or write anything that I know not to be true. And then he had his own little quotation, which I think you've heard before. When honor is dead, the man is dead. And you'll recognize that from the back of your honor stone between Centennial and Willard Hall. Now, on the other side of that leadership card, with the 14 traits of a leader, are principles of leadership. Well, I've taken the liberty to modify that a little bit and put in my own principles of leadership. And the first one is that there are 3 F's to leadership. Be firm, but fair and friendly. Firm, fair, and friendly. And the next principle of leadership is to treat your men like a dog. How many of you have pet dogs back home. Okay? As a good dog owner, you know that you never abuse your dog. When he does something wrong, you say, no, that's wrong. But when he does something right, then you pat him on the head and say, good dog. Now the same is true if you're a squad leader. A good squad leader knows that he never abuses his men, either physically or verbally. When they do something wrong, you say, no, that's wrong. When they do something good, then you pat them on the back, say, good job, well done. Another principle of leadership is to set the example. It's always good for the leader to set the example for his men. When I first went in the Army, I went down to Fort Benning and went through the basic infantry course and ranger course, parachute jump course. And as I recall, correct me if I'm wrong, if I recall, there were 7 commands that the jump master would give when you're up in the plane ready to go up. And it goes something like this. Get ready, stand up, hook up, check your equipment, sound off for equipment check, stand in the door, go! And out the door you go. When I got to Fort Bragg, they changed that a little bit. Instead of saying go, it was let's go. The platoon leader was the first one out the door. And before he went out the door, he would turn around to his men and say, let's go. Following the motto of the infantry, which is follow me. There was a graduate of Carson Long way back in the dark ages, 1943. He joined the Army shortly after World War II. Became a master sergeant, good master sergeant. When he was a squad leader, he said he wanted to set the example for his men. He wanted to do everything better than anyone else in his squad. He wanted to be the best in rifle marksmanship. He wanted to be the best in map reading. He wanted to be the best in shining his shoes. Well, we all know that you can't always be the best. No matter where you go or what you do, there's always somebody that's going to be better than you are. And Bart Starr, the former Hall of Famer quarterback for the Green Bay Packers, once said, if you're on a team, you have to know that there might be somebody faster than you. And there also might be people who do the drills better than you. But if you're going to be the leader of a team, if you're going to be the leader of a squad, you must show the best, you must be the most dedicated person in that team or in that squad in order to set the example. Another principle of leadership would be to praise in public and criticize in private. Nobody likes to be criticized. But the worst thing is to be criticized in front of your friends, in front of your peers, in front of anybody. So take the man aside, in private. Tell him what he did wrong. That way he'll try to correct his mistake, and he'll also respect you for not humiliating him. By the same token, we all like a pat on the back. If you're going to praise somebody, praise him. But you praise him in front of his peers, if you praise him in front of the rest of the people in the squad, he will greatly appreciate that, and he'll work twice as hard for you. And the final principle of leadership that I've chosen is from the Bible, the Golden Rule. And I'll paraphrase that a little bit by saying, treat others the same way that you want to be treated. How were you treated as a new cadet? Were you treated badly? Did you like it? If you were treated badly, if you didn't like it, then don't treat your new cadets the same way. On the other hand, if you were treated well, if you did like it as a new cadet, then treat your new cadets, and understand we have a number of new cadets in here this morning. That's great. Treat them well. You'll get more from them, you'll get more respect than any other method you could have. Now, my last assignment in the Army was at Fort Benning, again, the infantry school. I was an instructor in small unit tactics. But before I was allowed to get on the platform to give a talk, to give a class, they made me go through a charm school, that's what we call it, instructor training course. And in the instructor training course, they said there are 3 things in teaching a class. Number 1, tell them what you're going to tell them. Number 2, tell them. Number 3, tell them what you told them. At the beginning of my talk, I told you what I was going to tell you about leadership. Then I told you. Now I need a little help from some of you, from one of you, to tell me what I told you. So, one person, what are the 3 M's of leadership? Yes.
All 3 M's of leadership: my mission, my men, and me.
My mission, my men, and me. Very good. Now, everybody, what are the 3 M's of leadership?
My mission, my men, and me.
A little louder.
My mission, my men, and me.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure being here. Any questions? Well, that's good. I covered it all.
Now we're going to see if you can follow instruction. Would you take your jacket off, please? It's a good start. Notice how we listen right away. We are introducing our varsity jacket. We had one made for you, Colonel Holman. It's part of our leadership effort, and we want you to try it on and see if it'll fit before we give it to you formally. So please. By the way, Martha gave us the size, so if it's wrong.
Hold it somewhere.
Ah, yeah. All right, beautiful.
Always wanted a varsity jacket.
I am.
Thank you.
I just want to mention, it really feels good to start to see this place fill up again. Thank you very much for what you're doing for us, and thanks for coming back once more. And I'll be watching for this coming up around the field in days to come. Thanks very much.